Welcome, y'all. Um, it's the Kristen and Roman Show, episode 5. Why labeling can be harmful. We like to have interesting titles, don't we? I'm Roman White.
I'm Kristen Brown.
We're so glad to have you. I'm going to jump right in to this cool little study that I found a while back. And it's a Japanese, they call him a pseudoscientist, author, businessman, Dr. Emoto. And what he did is he demonstrated that water is shaped by environment, thoughts, and emotions. So in his studies, he found that water exposed to positive words and intentions formed these beautiful, symmetrical, crystalline structures when water was frozen, right? And they took photos. And while the same water was exposed to negative words and intentions, it formed these really disorganized, asymmetrical, what we would call not so pretty structures. And the reason why I mentioned that example is because the human body is made up of, on an average, 60% water. So ponder that for a minute. If it's said that the environment, thoughts, and emotions, right, shape these structures, then we also form or shape, are shaped by the environment, by words, by intention, by energy, right? So I just wanted to put that out there that he was somebody who literally proved that labels, when we put it on water, and remember we're 60% water, actually change the structure, right? And not just physical, mental, spiritual, you name it. So um, recently I talked to a Dr. Itai Danovich. He's the chair of the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Neuroscience at Cedars-Sinai. And we talked about labels, and he also agreed that it can really harm a child, especially, but a human's like perception of who they are, right? So that's kind of what today is about. I want to ping pong back to you. I want to talk about what are labels, what kind of labels are we talking about? Why do we say it's harmful? And so I would say let's get right into it. What do you think, Kristen?
Well, first I want to say hi to Cecilia Grace. She joined us. I'm not sure if you can see that, Roman, on the chat. I
I
think
can.
if you, yeah, okay, good. So this is our first time, you guys, live on YouTube, and apparently you have to do it via phone. So this is why we look like this today. But I just want to say hello and welcome to everybody that's here. And yes, we have our hats on today. This is what we're doing because you don't want to know what's under this hat. Roman did get to see it though. I showed him. So that is something I heard myself. I heard that exact story and it didn't shock me. It didn't shock me because we're all energy and the words that we speak are affecting us all the time. And one of the things that I struggle with as a coach and mentor is when I see so much dialogue and monologue out in the world today where people are like trying to get people to define themselves like by anxious attachment or all of these labels. I took that Myers-Briggs test. Is that the one with the NFJA and all those things? I took that test probably 20 years ago, and I was whatever my numbers were, my letters were, and I recently took it again and it was completely different. And this is something that I really want to stress here today is that we are forever evolving individuals. We're always changing. If we want, we're changing even if we don't want to change, because sometimes our environment changes, our thoughts start to change, experiences change us. So to label ourselves like something like we were talking about pre-gaming, like a cheater, like you're once a cheater, always a cheater, or a loser, or I was born on the wrong side of the tracks. I'm just a poor person, or I'm an anxious avoidant, or I'm codependent, or I'm needy, or whatever these things are. I feel like it's okay to have a word to describe a set of behaviors just to kind of clue you in that, you know what, I am showing these type of behaviors right now, but this doesn't mean it's forever, Roman.
Yeah, I agree. And the words that came to my mind when the brilliant Kristen Brown speaks, that's why I think you and I are such a good duo. I don't often say that about people when I interview them, but I think we can just, really go there. What came to mind is current challenges, right? If we look at labels as the current challenges we're facing,
Mm,
like in this moment, And then we go out and do the research and we really look at all the ways we can address those current challenges. Then labels are okay. They're just used for, it's a shorthand between therapists, between healers, doctors. I get it. But I agree with you when we're stuck with a label, when, I hear these mothers, and for those of you who don't know, I do a lot of research into ADHD. That's where I come from. I have a podcast called ADHD is Over. And one thing that I see mothers do is they call their children my ADHDer.
Mm,
And it makes me squirm because they're labeling a young being that still has so many years left in life to change and transform and grow up and unfold, right? They're labeling them as a thing, as if they were the ADHDer, right? Instead of my child has some current challenges with paying attention when he's at school. That's a
yeah.
different, right?
That's so incredibly true, and I hear this people talk over themselves a lot like this. "I am blank." And,
Yeah.
the great Wayne Dyer back in the day, he talked about this so much that anything that follows the word "I am" is what we are creating in our lives
Yes.
repeatedly. So if I always say, "Well, I'm codependent," or "I am a narcissist," or "I am" whatever it might be, "a loser," then I'm continually creating that experience in my life because I'm owning it as my identity,
Yes.
not that this is a particular set of behaviors that I'm experiencing right now. Because here's
Yeah.
the thing, after a traumatic experience, it's going to change us because it changes our brain. So let's say we have been cheated on, and now we're like, oh my gosh, everybody out there is going to cheat on, or I'm a victim. It could even be that kind of thing. And this is always going to happen. This always happens to me. Okay. When we speak in terms of that, then we're creating that in our future experience.
Yeah. And it's as simple as you are who you say you are.
Yeah.
We don't need to argue from there. It's just that's who you are in that moment, right? So for me, for example, at the beginning when I went into the 12-step program I'm currently in around love and sex addiction, I labeled myself as an addict. I would say I am a sex and love addict, right? But currently, how I see it is like I'm someone who has tendencies that are unhealthy around these topics, intimacy, love, sex, and I'm in recovery so that I can heal that. That's different than I am an addict, right? I get the initial like need to label and belong and sort of say I have a problem, but I think we get stuck in these labels, and people that are stuck in them are never empowered by them. They're always disempowered. And the moment they start arguing with me, when they say, well, but ADHD is real and I have ADHD and I'm someone with ADHD, I get by their defensiveness that it's disempowering for them in life. It's not empowering.
Yeah. Let's talk about the addict label because you and I
Yeah.
have talked about this before in just, I don't know if we were in a private conversation or if we were live on another something or another, because you and I have had hundreds of conversations. Rome and I met on the Wisdom app, which is a live social audio app, and from Go. I just remember that December talking to you and doing puzzles, and like Roman's on, and I would jump up and we would just riff for a long time. But in one of our conversations, you were talking about, like, not forever claiming yourself as an addict, which is this is gonna be against the grain because people are like, "Well, I'm an addict. I'm always an addict. This is it." So can you share that about that a little bit? Because it's not just about love and sex addiction. It could be an addict to,
Anything.
alcohol or drugs or anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, again, I understand the need for people to identify themselves with a certain group of people that share a similar, what I call a challenge, right? An unhealthy way of being around, whether it's food, gambling, workaholism, video games. The list of addictions are expanding daily, right? Um, because we're just using the next thing to check out and to numb ourselves, right? Like Netflix binge watching is an addiction. It really is for those who can't not do it, right? And then they're tired and they go to work, you know, whatever. But one of the things that I got early on, just like you said, right? Wayne Dyer is one of the guys who says, right, if you say I am and what follows, you're creating your reality, which you are part of your reality, right? So for me, it was always weird to say I am an addict, but I did it at the beginning because it did something to me. It brought me into a family or a group of people that have issues, right? That have challenges. And I sort of said, me too, because my ego was like, there's no problem here. There's no problem here. You're fine. And so just to label myself temporarily, which has been probably 6 or 7 months as an addict, helped. But I always knew that that's not all I am. That's not who I am. And I'm not going to continue to be stuck with that unless I say so. And so I'm a big believer that we get to choose any moment. We can drop a label when it no longer serves us. It did serve me. So I just want to say that for anyone. Labels can serve for a while, but when they're permanently applied with like, super glue
Yeah.
onto a
Yeah.
child's forehead that says ADHD, that does damage, and we'll get into that.
Well, it helps you I feel it helps us to feel like we're not alone. I hear that a lot, like, I just got a comment on one of my videos yesterday. It's my highest viewed video, and someone says, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that I'm not alone, like, there's so many people that are having this experience," and I said, "Yes, there's something so serving about I'm not fatally flawed, just all by
Mhm.
myself, sitting over here in the corner in a world full of 7.9 billion people. Like I'm the
Yeah,
problem, right?"
yeah,
So I think it helps us to know, okay, you know what? This stuff is being talked about in the world. There's so much information on this in the world. I'm not the only one. This is a thing,
yeah.
right?
It
And
is.
I think that's really helpful. But it's, when you mentioned labeling the child ADHD and or it's my ADHD or type situation, it made me think of things that people say, like, well, she or he is my difficult child, or he or she is my easy child. So let's think about this. If we label somebody difficult, they're always going to think they're difficult. If we label
Mhm.
and they're going to act in ways that are difficult to uphold that label because it's in
Yeah,
their brain now. But it also, if we say this is my easy child, then that child feels like they can never be difficult. So, when we put labels on other people as well as ourselves, it's really constricting and pulling everything into this little tiny box when we truly are expansive beings. Like we're
yeah.
not here to be the same. We are shedding ourselves. Like there's something like our cells change every, I don't know how many minutes. Like we're constantly regenerating. And that's an exciting concept for me because knowing that, yeah, today I might have been feeling depressive, it doesn't mean that I'm depressed. And now I'm depressed and I'm a depressed person. I'm going to keep being
Yeah.
depressed. It means today I'm experiencing that. And I have a family member who I love dearly, and she's a wonderful person out in the community doing her healing work as well. And she was diagnosed with bipolar. And she talks about this as she doesn't say, I am bipolar. She says, I have bipolar. So she has even just changed the words herself because she doesn't want it to be an identity that she's going to be the rest of her life.
I think that's great. I would take that a step further because first of
I would
all,
too.
you're not that until you say so. Then I would go to you can't have it because it's not a thing, but you can say, I have behavior that is said to be or labeled as or diagnosed as bipolar. And then you can work on the behavior and you can track it back. Where does my behavior come from? And I've seen it in research for over
Hmm.
seven
I
years.
agree.
It all leads back to childhood trauma.
Always.
It's very rare occasion is it an anomaly. And even then, I think we're just not seeing it yet where it's really coming from, and it goes further back, right? Transgenerational hand-me-down trauma, and trauma is another topic. We'll do another episode on that, but I
We
agree
need
with you
to.
that, yeah, it's a very important one. But what came up for me was really interesting when you were talking is, you know, there are these agreements in society that is sometimes it's called a stigma. And for example, one thing I've noticed, and this is around ADHD, is when people get diagnosed, especially adults, they go, "Oh, now I finally know what's wrong with me."
Yeah.
Well, that sentence tells me that the entire complex of ADHD, that world, has already stigmatized your behavior that they've labeled as ADHD as there's something wrong with you, so much so that people actually identify with, I always knew there's something wrong with me, but now I know what it is. And that's a whole different like container that they live in. If you live in a container in a space that's called I am whole and complete. There's nothing wrong with me, but I have some behaviors I could change or I could heal certain right things in my life. Now you're living a different life. You're not constantly looking for what's wrong with me. But so this diagnosis embracement comes usually from people that have been brought up to live a life of like, what's wrong with me? There's something wrong with me. I need to know what it is that's wrong with me so I can fix it, right? And that
Yeah.
keeps you stuck.
I love that you brought up the trauma topic, and I do wanna go there for a minute because like I said earlier, trauma changes the brain. And what we're really doing here is we're healing. And we've all had trauma. There's no one without it. We're not getting out of this life unscathed. I don't know anybody that hasn't had it. And I remember having this realization in my 20s. I'm like, I might be dealing with this, but then I looked over at this person. I'm like, they got this, right? And it was different, but it changes us. And then it shows up in a set of behaviors. And I feel like if what this is really about is recognizing the places inside of us that need healing. This is why on my channel, my YouTube channel, I don't, I could go on and on about narcissism and I could blow my channel the fuck up because that is a catchphrase right now that people love. And if I make a video on it, because I do, because it's important to talk about, and this is what people are attaching to right now. So I use the words that they understand. Okay. But I don't stick there very long, and I also don't go into all these other things like, these personality tests and these enneagrams and these type of things because I have seen people my clients have said to me sometimes, "Well, I'm a 4 on the Enneagram," and they kept going back to that as like, "This is just it. This is as good as it gets. It's not changing." And I'm like, "No, this is just describing where you're at right now. Yes, we do have certain proclivities. We have certain ways that we are, you know, based on nature, like how we came here genetically, certain things we like and those type of things. However, if there's any behavior that you're going, wow, this is not showing up as healthy in the world, it is changeable. It is healable. And
Yeah,
I think it is when a person attaches onto something like I am ADHD or I am codependent or I am whatever blank, fill in the blank. I'm a loser. I'm a jerk. I'm whatever it might be, difficult. I hear people say, well, I'm difficult or I'm high maintenance. Why is that considered? Why are you putting this on yourself? Because people are
yeah.
taking these things and then they're identifying with it. And we have so much more to our identity than a certain set of behaviors that we're trying to label.
Absolutely. And I think in that situation, I would ask people, and I don't mean I do this every time, but the real question is, what are you out to get by announcing that you are a certain thing, right? So if you say,
Oh,
I
so
am
good.
OCD, or well, I'm ADHD, or I'm just I always forget things, really look at, are you bragging or are you making an excuse? Because
Yes.
it's either one of those two.
And that's a
And
hard reality, but that's the truth.
it's true. I catch myself doing it sometimes with things that I say. I'm like, why did I say that? Oh, I was trying to brag a little bit. Okay. Or I was trying to make an excuse, you know? And it's just good to be aware of it because I talk to people on a daily basis, as you can imagine, about ADHD. And there's people defending, like with tooth and nail, defending that there's something wrong with them and defending that ADHD can never be over, right? It's almost like saying, let's get rid of cancer. And people go, no, I love my cancer. I have cancer and I don't you dare say it doesn't exist, right? It's almost like that where I go like,
Yeah.
well, don't you like if you're struggling with it, wouldn't you want it to be over? Wouldn't you at least be interested in a conversation to explore what it might take for it to be over for you as an individual? It blows my mind how people are like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. And it's like, no, I know exactly what I'm talking about. It's
And you
just that
do know
I'm
what
confronting. Yeah.
yes, and when I heard the name of your podcast for the very first time, like how many months? I don't even know, a year ago. I don't even know how long now. I was like, go Roman. Wow. Because that is something that really goes up against the grain because a lot of people do want to identify that. And I am going to say they use it as an excuse to their behavior.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Instead of saying, I want to do better, I want to go higher, I want to heal this thing, because we do know that ADHD, and correct me if I'm wrong, is a trauma-based behavior, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a mainstream scientifically proven, but I have enough evidence. I've seen enough evidence in studies and talked to experts that it points to trauma as the main cause. Yes. Now, there's not one cause, but as the main cause for sure. And I like what you said because, people not letting go of like it's sort of a comfort zone, right? It's like, well, if I have to label in the diagnosis and the medication, then I get certain hall passes. I get certain hall passes,
Yes,
right? And I
yes,
don't want to let that go because who am I without it, right? And
yeah,
there's an unwillingness to explore that if you went deeper and you slowed down in life and you really put aside your distractions and your addictions for a while for the time being so you can get sober and heal, you would actually dissolve your ADHD if you do trauma healing. It's totally proven. I mean, I've
and
seen it.
it is, and he's talked to expert upon expert upon expert upon expert, right? I just wanna circle back a minute because I get really, like, nerdy excited when someone's like, "Yeah, I asked myself, am I bragging or am I," and you're like, "Yep, I'm a little bragging right there." That right there is what helps us heal. When we go within and we provide that self-awareness is key, and it's about asking ourselves hard questions and then being willing to be honest with ourselves. Here's the thing, when I do that, when I ask myself these hard questions, and at first when I did it, I was like, "Is anybody watching?" Because I'm gonna admit something to myself that may not be super pleasing looking, and there's no one watching. This is going up inside your noggin. 'Kay, the only person you're hurting by I got a hair probably a cat hair. The only person you're hurting by not being honest with yourself is yourself. Okay, we're hurting
Yeah,
ourselves, and you and I are both about self-healing. We're both about grabbing this stuff by the cojones and figuring it out some way or form, because we both had our separate journeys. And I will tell you this, I wanted to mention this, that my healing journey didn't start because I said, I'm a people pleaser, I'm codependent, I'm blah, blah, blah. I didn't list anything. All I knew was I did not like the experience I was experiencing. Something
yeah,
was wrong. I didn't know what was wrong. And I set course to heal that thing. And as life went on, then I started to go like, okay, here's certain ways we can label this that the world understands so that they can come and join this healing as well. But we don't need to stay there. Um,
yeah. You
yeah,
know, I would love to
self-honesty,
just go back. Yeah, self-honesty is everything, right? It's like
everything.
if I get spiritual or metaphysical for a moment, I'm a big believer that you are the only person or the only being in the world, other than God, whatever higher power, that always at any given moment knows the truth about you. And I have a theory that people who eventually they're losing their memory, is because they're choosing their memory to lose their memory little by little. It could be subconscious, but they're just things they don't want to remember. I don't want to remember the things I did wrong or I didn't do, or the abuse I, can't share with anyone. There's just this, I just believe that you always know what is the truth and you can't hide from your own conscience unless you choose to forget.
Yeah.
Just want to leave that there. But I wanted to, if I may, go back to you said
Yes.
a great word that is a huge label, and that's narcissism, right?
Mhm.
And I believe that no one is a narcissist. I believe that no one is an addict. I believe that no one is an ADHDer. And what I mean by that is that a narcissist is a child, a wounded child that's become an adult
Yep.
that hasn't healed a wound, right?
Yep.
So by labeling someone a narcissist, again, like you said, we keep them stuck. We like to sort of label them and put them in a box so we can say that's the bad guy or the bad girl, right? And it doesn't support any human being who hasn't healed a wound when we're pouring gasoline into the fire, right? We're basically inflaming their wound by calling them a narcissist. And it doesn't do anyone any good. Now, again, of course, there are people with narcissistic behavior. I used to be and still find myself sometimes engaging in that behavior, but I'm aware of it. And that behavior can be healed.
Yep.
And so I am not a narcissist, but I used to have tendencies and still have some around narcissism. So again, labels are not bad. Like it's okay to. It's kind of like if we don't know what a chair is called, and you walk into a furniture store and you go, I want, right? Then they're like, what the fuck do you want? It's like, I want, and then you go like, I want a sitting device. And they're like, well, there's benches, there's chairs, there's bar stool.
Sitting
What?
device.
Right? So labels are fine, but if you suddenly like identify with a label, then like we're saying, it's harmful because you stay stuck and you actually start believing that's who you are, and you take on the agreement of that label. In case of, say, an addiction, if you say I'm an addict, when you tell people, hey, would you be interested in dating an addict, they'll be like, I don't want to date an addict, because it comes with a negative agreement of society. So why label yourself as something like ADHD is a brain disorder? Why label yourself with a disorder when the
Yes.
agreement of a disorder is not an empowering? I
Oh
don't
my
get it.
gosh. And this is what I love about Roman Wyden. He's not afraid to say it straight, and neither am I. And this is something that that can create a lot of pushback, because I did a video on whether or not a narcissist could heal. And woo, people don't want that, because the truth is I have watched it with my own eyes. I have
Yeah.
coached it. I've coached it. I've coached people through it. And yes, just like a people pleaser has that tendency, and they may fall back into that direction because that is the way their brain designed for them to get their needs met in their
Mhm.
life. Sometimes we fall back to that, but they're on the healing path as well. The same thing is true as what I call NTPs, narcissistic type people, or have those type of tendencies. Okay, this is healable. But what I have discovered is that oftentimes people don't go within and really look at themselves to try to get on the healing path unless the pain of staying the same has gotten too great, and their life has crashed and burned in some capacity, or just something's happened. They hit some type of bottom or wake up call, whatever, had the 2x4 to the head, figuratively, for them to finally go, this isn't working for me. But this is, again, to label something that, when I have watched it for myself, and these are men, we're women, and I'm not saying women can't be this way, because I've seen that too. But in my particular case, the people that I've coached are men, and they're the ones who said to me, I'm a narcissist. And I'm like, whoa, slow down, homie. Okay, let's talk about this. But they're the ones that are trying to label it themselves. And I'm like, okay, no. The way that your brain has processed things, yada, yada, yada. But if they forever walk around with that thought, then they are going to always live in conjunction to that. And let's also talk about that it's very disempowering. It's, a whole shit ton of limiting beliefs come by labeling yourself something. I'm
Yeah.
anxious avoidant. I can't get into relationships. I'm toxic, or whatever. Whatever it is, it's going to come with a whole bunch of limiting beliefs that are going to keep us stuck,
Yeah.
because we are going to act, we organically act, we naturally act from the belief system that is swirling in our brain.
And I love that. I love that. And well said. As Kristen Brown says, everything she says is well said. Even when she has a cooking recipe, it sounds like transformational life advice. When she reads the tax return, it sounds like I want to do that.
That's
um,
really nice. Let's throw in that.
um,
Cleaning the bathroom. No.
just I guess we had the comments we didn't pay much attention to, but Love said, "Can you say my name?" Yes, Love. Saying your
Love,
name.
love,
Love. Yes,
love.
Love. And according to everyone, everyone's a narcissist nowadays. Yeah, I totally agree. Now, here's the cool thing. So what a narcissist is, and this is not about narcissism, this is about labels. I'll bring it back to the label part, but a narcissist is simply a human being that didn't have their needs met in childhood. So they felt the need to get their needs met first whenever they could, because they
Yep.
were like, I'm going to die if I don't get my needs met, if I don't get the bigger present or the attention of my parents, or if I don't get the girlfriend that I think is going to make me happy, or the money that's going to give me stature, right? All that is just simply a human being that hadn't had their needs met. And now by labeling them with a narcissist, and this is what you were saying earlier, if we could take, people don't want that to be taken away, because somebody who divorced a narcissist doesn't want to let go of the righteousness that that person is why we got divorced. He was the narcissist, and I
Yes.
suffered narcissistic abuse. I hear this all the time. And yes, there's true abuse, right?
Yes, there
This
is.
is not, I'm not victim shaming. There, when there's abuse, it's abuse, and it's, I call that completely out of integrity and wrong. But there, we throw these buzzwords around like narcissistic abuse, and people are not willing to look at their part. How come you attracted a narcissistic abuser? What about you that attracted that? Because whenever we're triggered, and you and I talked about this, whenever we're triggered, it's an opportunity for growth. It's not an opportunity to put someone further into their box and lock it and discard them and have resentment for life, which actually will do you harm, right? The resentment holder is hurt more than the person that we have resentment towards. So it's just all, and it's all because of a label. It's like, we have to be kissed. I can't stress this enough, but when I talk to parents who are like, well, but you say labeling is bad, but it's not really, I mean, it's, come on, it's not that bad. And I want to look at them and say, no, it's actually horrible. It's really, you got to be really careful. And it's not horrible because every human being suffers from that. Some people, they turn out okay. They have a label and later they grow up and they're fine. But for most children at 4 or 5 years old to be labeled with a brain disorder, that's going to do some damage. I've seen it, I've heard it, and it's out there. The studies are out there. It's definitely doing damage, and we're just not stopping to realize that, change it.
Oh, and you're making me think of something right now because as little youngins, oftentimes people are going to speak words over us that we adopt, like we're stupid or we're never going to amount to
Mhm.
anything, or whatever it might be. There's sky's the limit with these things, and then we adopt that as our belief system because it was spoken over us. And yes, at that point we were powerless to the elders and adults and authority figures in our life, and that is the case for a minute in our life. But then it gets to the place where we get to start to make our decisions for ourselves, and we can have authority and dominion and sovereignty over our own life, and we can decide that that's no longer true. Because here's the deal: I have seen people that think they have a thing, and I see something completely different. Like, my experience of that person wasn't that, but they're living within this. Like, I had this client one time, she was beautiful. She was so beautiful inside and out. She was a lead singer and I think guitar player in a band, and she grew up in Canada in a trailer park. She had alcoholic type parents. I'm drawing the scenery here for you guys. Understand, at some point, somehow she was caught in a fire and part of her body was burned. And when she came to me, she was living under the identity and label that she is trailer trash. This girl was classy and beautiful and a songbird and handled herself, but this is the label she had in her head. I am trailer trash. And I'm like, you're the farthest thing from that. You're a
Yeah,
gorgeous, beautiful human being. So, this is the things that I really think this conversation is so incredibly important because we're dealing with society, we're dealing with all this social media, we're dealing with these things, and people so desperately want to fix whatever is wrong. Okay. This is
yeah.
really about healing. And I have come to the point in my path, in my journey, that when someone says, well, what was going on with that person? I tend to say they've just not done their healing work yet, rather
Yeah.
than saying they're this or that or this or that, because really that's what it boils down to.
Well, yeah, and in the example of a narcissist, it's a great example because it's so everywhere, is
Hmm.
when we say that person's a narcissist, I could look at this commentator and say, okay, why? And then people go, what do you mean? He's a narcissist. He's in his ego, like he's selfish. Why? That's how he is, right? But when we go further down, when we actually ask the real question, why, and we go, well, unhealed wounds, didn't get his needs met, is acting primarily from the ego, not the self, right? Not the soul, the higher self, is acting from the lower self. Great.
Hmm.
Why? All same with ADHD, the same with depression, the same with, I'm a big believer, all mental disorders are, if you trace it back, it's all trauma based wiring of the brain.
Same.
It's the
100%.
nervous system, right? Nervous system gets affected. You react a certain way. The brain gets wired, defense mechanism. And now you're, in the case of ADHD, you're constantly checking out. You have to check out. You can't be in the present moment. It's not safe. It's not comfortable. So go over there, go over there. What's next? Where can I be? I can't be comfortable in this moment, right? And the same with the narcissist. It's like, I'm not getting my needs met here. I got to go and get it here. I got to go. So all of that, if we just cut someone slack and say, look, that not poor person, that's a label too, but like have
Compassion.
empathy, compassion
Compassion.
for this human being that's
Yep.
still healing. And trust me, anyone pointing the finger at someone else that they're a narcissist hasn't done their own healing. Just want to say that because it's,
Oh,
you point one finger, three are pointing back at you. So it's it's pointless to point someone out as a narcissist. You can say, no, thank you. I don't want to be around this person and remove yourself, right? That's just a choice. That's a boundary. But there's no need to like, oh, he's such a narcissist and F him or F her, or whatever. That's again unhealed. It's a reflection. It's a reflection of where we're at. So labels are good because if we use these labels, we get to see where are we unhealed too, right?
oh my gosh. And this is going to blow people's minds. And people might not want to believe me, and that's okay because I'm not here to convince anybody of anything. I'm just here to share what I have learned and seen and patterns and habits. I've been studying human nature my entire life. That's like I was talking about earlier. There's some things that we just came here with, and I've had a fascination of human beings my whole life. I love people, I love watching people, and blah, blah, blah. This is something that's going to blow people's minds. People that another person would label a narcissist, or maybe they even labeled themselves a narcissist. I've seen them have people pleasing behaviors too. So it's like, where is this line, right?
Yeah.
Where is this line of what this is? So when we can really look at the person, at, like you said, compassionately and knowing that this person has been wounded, they're healing, and we can still set boundaries. People still
Right.
require consequences for their shitty and abusive behavior. Okay, this does not mean we have compassion and stay and let ourselves be the punching bag or the whipping post or whatever of this person. This means I understand this person is healed. I have compassion for them on their journey, and I am going to have a boundary with this, and I'm going to step away if this person does not
Mhm.
heed my boundary. And the best thing that I've noticed about boundaries is that because a lot of people are scared to set boundaries, but they actually give the person the opportunity to look at their own behaviors. Because if there's someone who's trying to get from you and like your attention and want to be around you, and then you're like, okay, but you're doing this and that behavior is bad, I'm going to remove myself every single time you do that, that shines a mirror on their behaviors. They're like, I don't get that if I'm acting like this. Okay.
Yeah.
And you're actually training this person, training them, so to speak, to know that that behavior does not get this. This sounds terrible, but it's the same way as if we were training a dog. Okay. They know when that behavior, they don't get the treat, this behavior, they do. And
Yeah.
that will wake people up to go, okay, that particular way that I'm acting is not going to yield me the results that I want. This is why boundaries are so important because it wakes people up to
Yeah.
what their behaviors are. We really got
Uh,
onto the narcissist thing. First, I want to say before we continue, is I'm holding my microphone, you guys, because if I let it do this, I've noticed on Wisdom that I get this tinking sound because it taps against things. So that's why I'm sitting here like this. And I also want to say to anybody, we've had a lot of people pass through this room. If you would like to drop down into comments and say hello and tell us where you're from or any questions that you might have, please do, because we're here to answer your questions and to really shed light on any of these topics that are coming up right now. Anything that just pops into your head that you want to share with us, please do.
yeah, please do. And talking about boundaries, I believe that when we just label someone and sort of write them off as in like, oh, that person's such a narcissist, we are actually robbing ourselves of the opportunity to set a boundary, which most of us haven't been raised to do. So it would be an opportunity, like a life's lesson that we can learn in that moment to say, you know what, let me not label that person, but let me see where I stand with being in the energy of that person. And if I don't want to be there, then I can say, look, if you'd like to continue this conversation, I need you to, do XYZ or change this and that. Otherwise, I will remove myself from the conversation. I don't want to heap, right? That's setting a boundary. But when we just write someone off with a label, we're actually robbing both people, ourselves and the other person, from probably some of life's most important conversations in that moment, to really set the boundaries so that you can relate to each other in a healthy way, right? But most of us are not taught. I was never taught that. I had to learn that. I'm still learning.
See, and that's the thing is that we're so hard on ourselves and other people, but let's just what I always say is we're teeny tiny baby humans doing the best we can. And that is a level of compassion and understanding for us and for others that really helps an environment, a relationship to heal. Okay, we're all doing the best we can. Sometimes we're making a holy effing mess out of things, or the person that we're with is. But, let's just slow down, have a crucial conversation because these conversations, my relationship with my children and my husband, especially my kids, because they've been with me the longest, it's gone through so many different phases. There's so many different phases. And
Yeah.
sometimes they hate me, sometimes they love me. Now we're the age they are now, we're pretty consistent with the love situation. But it required crucial conversations over and over and over again. I didn't know what to say, even though I was the parent and the leader. Sometimes I just had to sit in it and say, God, guide me, because I don't know what to do here. And I would just get quiet and allow information to come through me. But talking about the hard things, talking about the things that people want to avoid is the way to heal. We have to pull things up by the root. I always say, pull them up by the root, throw them on the sidewalk like a weed here in Arizona, and let it dry out. It cannot happen if we're continually watering that thing. There's also a thing about labeling other people and ourselves, which means we're going to create a forward expectation of, yeah, oh, hi, my name is Kristen. I'm a people pleaser. I'm a whatever. I'm a loser. I'm a trailer trash. I'm whatever it is. Then this person now has an expectation in their mind based on their definition of what they think that thing is, which is also
Totally.
going to create a filter through which they see us. Okay? We can change. I'm not who I was last year. I'm probably not who I was 2 months ago. Okay, I am continually healing and upgrading myself, and I can feel it. I can
Yeah.
feel the changes. I can see the changes. And this happens by not putting myself in a box.
And by the way, everything you're describing, I think that's great. That really is the crux of what we're saying here, because there's actually there's clear scientific evidence that the brain can be rewired into old age, right? But
Mhm.
in the case of ADHD, for example, parents are told that unless you do something about it, your child's going to be stuck with the ADHD brain. That's what they're saying, right? Unless you medicate, or which they mostly recommend medication, unfortunately, as the most effective, right? But no one says, but wait, if my brain can be rewired into old age, then why can't I try many things out for years and see what actually works for me, rather than, if you don't do it now, you're stuck with it, right? And this whole idea of being stuck with a label is very dangerous, because on the other hand, we know that's bullshit, that the brain can be rewired into old age. Like you said, you're still changing, I'm still changing. I'm currently rewiring my brain. um, I see the effects of it happening and
And
working.
we're
Maybe it's,
old, and we're old. No, I'm kidding.
we're like senior citizens. No,
Oh,
but
yeah. No.
but it's like, sure, maybe at 20 years old it would have gone faster. Like, what, how I'm detoxing my brain now might have gone faster when I was 20, but that's besides the point. The point is that you can change your brain, your state, your way of being, your personality, your behavior, until you die. And
Yes.
that's empowering.
And I love that you brought that up because this whole thing of like, I have seen or heard people say, "Oh, I'm too old to change." Okay,
Yeah.
what that means is I don't want to.
Yeah.
It means I don't want to. Maybe I'm lazy. Maybe I don't want to put the effort in. Maybe I just like the way I am. I remember one husband saying to a wife when the wife was talking to them about their issues, and the husband straight up said, I am what I am. Like, it's just
Yeah.
like, freaking deal with it. And they
Yeah.
ended up getting a divorce because it's like, You know what? I am constantly healing and growing, and here's what happens is that if we don't if we're healing and growing, we met somebody at a vibrational frequency. And then if we're healing and growing and we're moving, there's going to create a disconnect between us where we're no longer going to be vibrationally aligned with that person. So I often say that couples or friends or whoever, families that grow together, stay together. I even mentioned it in my book because then you guys, you can kind of leapfrog a little bit, or one gets a little higher and the other one, whatever. There's no way that it needs to look. But if there's upward movement, you can pull the other one up by saying, look what I learned about myself. Or you know what I've discovered. And the other one could say, this is what's going on for me. And you have these amazing conversations that actually change the way we think. It's going to change our perception. And perception is the pathway to healing because when we have a shift in perception, we create a change in direction.
Mm,
100%. So when I start to think something different, then I automatically start to go that place. And I know that the limiting beliefs that I still have back here in my unconscious due to all the things that come across our path, someone once can say something to me in my 20s, just once. And here I am in my 40s, remembering that one thing, that one time, and it has shaped the way I think about myself. So it's not like it has to be hammered into us all the time. It can just be something that made us go, oh my God, that person thinks that. And now we think it, we take it on ourselves. And I remember in
yeah.
my 20s being called things because I was speaking up. I wasn't a quiet person. I wasn't the person that just took the bullshit. And I would speak up and I would say, hey, not cool. And then I was called a nag and a rag and all. And I'm like, and then I thought, okay, don't speak up because don't stand up for myself because I'm going to be labeled this. So I started to shrink a little bit, and there was a part of me that says, "This is not right. Don't
Yeah.
call me a name because I'm respecting myself."
And, as you were talking, I was just thinking about, we talked about the different labels earlier, and the cheater, right, is another one. You said, you know, once a cheater, always a cheater. And
I hear that a
I'm
lot.
100% with you as a former cheater.
No, I don't
I
say that. I'm saying that's what the world says.
Yeah, yeah, the world, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you don't.
Okay.
But it's like, as a former cheater, I'm now clear that once a cheater, always a cheater is not true. That is again keeping someone stuck. And usually it's the need to say, oh, that person cheated on me, so F you for cheating on me. And because you've cheated on me, you're going to cheat on everyone. So I'm writing you off entirely, right? Versus again finding out what was my part in it. Why did I attract a cheater? Why did this happen? What was my part? And also again realizing that the cheater is also still trying to heal a childhood wound. And
Yeah.
again, it's not having their needs met. And they somehow fell into feeling like, well, I gotta keep one foot out the door in every relationship, and I got to look for the next one in case this one doesn't work out, or I got to break up before they do, right? The fear of abandonment. There's all these complex childhood trauma effects that a cheating person is dealing with unconsciously, right? For me, it was unconscious in a way. I knew I was doing something that was out of integrity and not right, but I couldn't control it. So I did it anyway. But I don't cheat anymore. I'm done with cheating. I will never cheat on another person ever again. I'm 100% clear about that. Now,
Me
if I
too.
met a new
Yeah.
partner in the future and they had a concern about it, knowing my past, I would understand the concern, but I would do anything possible to always assure them, like, that is not happening ever again, because I've now healed that part of my childhood trauma, that wound, right? So, again, once a cheater is not always a cheater. That could be
Nope.
rewired. It just takes a lot of work. And here's the worst part, Kristen. What I don't like about this is that we then go, talking about labels, right? We then go even further and say, well, men cheat,
Oh
right?
yeah.
They
Oh
usually
yeah.
cheat. So now we're labeling a whole part of the population that
I know.
because you're a man, probably you're going to cheat, right? Now, I always say, well, look, men were raised by women. I mean, yes, fathers as well, but men were raised by mothers. So we can't just say masculine, all men are bad, right? I had a discussion at a sleepover of one of my kids with a mother that arrived, and she was very angry, and she was like, "Yeah, men," and she's like, "Men better get their shit together." And I was like, "Well, yeah, and women too." And she's like,
Yeah.
"No, no, no, no." And I
Stop.
said to her, I said, well, guess what? I, as a man, was raised by a woman, right? I had a father too, but my mother really was the disciplinary and and so I told her, I said, don't just put it all on men. Yes, we have our work cut out for sure, but women do too, right? So I just want to make sure we have these social labels that are almost these stereotypes, right? That are also labels. There's many other types of labels. None of them help us. None of them.
I'm so glad you brought that up because that's when anytime someone comes to me that starts a sentence with all blank do this,
Right.
stop right there. Stop right there. There are no
Yeah.
absolutes and all blank don't do anything. Okay, we are far too unique, far too complex that all everybody does everything. I'm blonde. I could fall into the category of dumb blonde. I am the farthest thing from dumb. You know
Yep.
what I'm
I
saying?
would.
It's
Yep.
like, or, I grew up in Scottsdale, Arizona. Oh, Scottsdale girls, this and that. I lived here when it was a cow town. Don't be telling me. You see what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it's like these type of things like labels that are putting on and I just sit here and watch people and they're like all this. I'm like, you are believing a limiting belief that is going to keep you stuck in life. It's going to stop you from thriving. It's going to stop you from acquiring your dreams because you're believing this horrible thing. And I've
Yeah.
heard it over and over again. I had a friend who lived in, oh, I think she was in Ohio, and she said, all the men in Ohio blank. And I said, no, not all the men in Ohio. She goes, yes, you don't know. This is my state. You don't know all the men. I'm like, okay, so all how many billions of people live there? All of them do
Right.
this.
But
And
it's
she was
only
like, and I told her, I said, you're having a limiting belief about your state. There's
yeah, and
like,
it's
you
like
don't know the
part.
coolest dude ever could be living downstairs and you have no idea because you believe he's like all these other guys.
But see, if we take that sentence, I love that. If, for example, this person said what's the truth and said all the men I've encountered in life are right, still not true because are really all the ones that she encountered the same way? No, but at least you would now bring it to what who I've encountered because then you can ask the question, how come I've attracted mostly men that are blank, right? That are X fill in the blank. Then you have an inquiry. Then you have a place to go to grow versus they're all wrong, right?
Oh my
It
God.
doesn't do anything.
I love that you brought this up because I'm going to tell a little story. After my tsunami exes, which is what I call my second ex husband, after my tsunami and my ex and all those things, I was really bitter. And now I want a backstory for people who don't know me or don't know me very well yet. I grew up with four brothers. I'm the only girl. I hung out in a neighborhood full of boys. I had guy best friends my whole life. Even when I met my first husband, I was like, okay, I've got, Bob, Jack, and Jim are coming with me into this relationship, because I got dudes for friends. Roman. Okay.
Yep.
And well, I love men. Like I literally love men. I love the company of men. And I was bitter and I was angry. And I found myself, Roman, one time standing in a Starbucks behind some guy. And I remember thinking there, I was like, yeah, what did you do? Yeah, you're probably some asshole. I mean, I literally in my brain, I was looking at some stranger and telling a whole story about him. This is what really caught my attention though, because I also love kids and I love little boys because they're in their purest form as male species when they're young. And this little boy walked by me and I was like, yeah, you're going to grow up to be a little fucker, aren't you? I mean, this is how bad it was. And I was like, Kristen Brown, what is going on? And I remember going, God, you're just so bitter and you're lumping
Mm.
everybody in. And this is what I did. I said, God, please help me to see good men right now. I know they're out there. And besides my brothers, because my brothers are stellar, I said, I know they're out there, but I'm really stuck because I'm stuck in this belief that all men suck and all men are, oh my gosh. That I think it was the next day, very first time I did this couple. They're a little Jewish couple. The wife had rheumatoid arthritis and she came in on her special scooter and he walked with her really slow because those things don't move well. The whole time she's in my chair, we have to be very careful at putting her in the chair and all these things because her legs didn't work well. He gushed over her and they were in their later years. And
Mm.
then the dad that came in with his autistic child that just gushed over his kid the whole time and his wife. All these people for years, and this maintained true. But after that day, was walking out of the salon, I was like, I go, "Thank you. I see it. I see it." That was just a limiting belief that I had. That was just a label that I had that was not
Mm,
true. But I was
yeah.
willing, and this is something I wanna bring to this conversation. You have to be willing, okay? The universe will work with us, God will work with us, but we have to be willing to ask the questions and then open our heart. Because we ask the question and sit there all pissed off and closed off and armored, it's not coming because we've got this narrow mindset. But when you open your mind and see, you're gonna get your answers
Yeah. I
or
love
the
that
new
story.
perception.
Right. And, you know, we can ask ourselves whenever we label, we can just say simply, is this coming from love or is this coming from righteousness? And if it's coming
Or
from
fear.
righteousness, or yeah, fear, right?
Mhm.
It's not going to do any good for anyone involved. If it's coming from love, it'll do good for everyone involved. And I know that's simplifying it, but that helped me to really look at like, when am I being judgmental and righteous, and when am I being loving, and have compassion? And never have I had a good result when I've been judgmental or righteous. Never, you know. You can talk yourself into, oh no, no, it was fine, it was good. That's bullshit. It never happens. And so it's just like, why do we keep labeling with righteousness, with like putting someone down, coming from fear? That's where we have to look. I was talking with somebody the other day. I said, look, um, in the case of say ADHD, uh, having a label as a shorthand, sure, that's fine with me. Let's have labels, but let's have them be empowering. And when it's a disorder, when you call somebody with a deficit and a disorder, those are two negative things. So that's not empowering. So what could we call it that's empowering? Could we call it current focus challenge, right? Or something where you get it's temporary, it's a challenge, and there's a solution, right? So then when you get diagnosed with a label, it's not like a hammer. It's more like a sponge. It's like somebody's holding you and say, "We're going to work with this," right? Versus, "Oh, dude, you got the thing in your brain. It's we got to fix that." That's a different world, you know.
Yeah, yeah. What were you calling it? A label is the
Oh,
shortcut
shorthand.
shorthand. See, I like that because Roman and I both want to express that if you have labeled yourself for somebody else, this does not mean you're bad or you're wrong or you suck or you need to feel ashamed or you need to, stop doing that. If it helps you to understand a situation better, by all means. What we're talking about is when we label somebody else or ourselves, how that is going to keep us in a box because we are literally owning that identity or giving somebody else an identity. When I choose to look at people as fallible, at the walking wounded, on the healing path, it's a spiritual journey. I look at people all in the same thing. Okay. And I will show up in the healthiest version of me that can potentially help them wake up or want to, promote them to want to change something about themselves as well. If I'm showing up in a disempowered version of myself, then I can't do that. So the best thing that I can bring to any relationship ever is to heal me because it
Yeah,
strengthens me. It grows me more into my authentic self. It gives me a voice. It doesn't make me shy away or hide or want to box up or play small. It allows me to speak freely. And probably the coolest thing that came from my own healing journey was, first of all, like I said, I didn't label myself anything. I did not label myself a thing. I just said this, I don't like the way relationships are showing up in my life. And I thought at the time that it was just my romantic relationships, but on my healing journey I looked back and it was my friendships too. So it
yeah,
was everywhere and I was like, okay, I don't like this. I didn't say, well, I'm a this and I need to heal that. It was like, no, I need to figure out why this is happening. And that's when I went within and started to give myself this love that we're talking about. And when I
yeah,
started to give myself this love, that's when it's like the blinders came off, everything became more clear. I actually became the strangest thing, but more gentle, but more firm. Like it was like this weird little thing that started to happen
yeah,
instead of being 'cause a lot of people are afraid of healing, that they're gonna turn into something. No, you become a cleaner, crisper, shinier, more brilliant version of the gem that you are.
Yeah, I love that. This is perhaps a good, what do you think? A good place for us to uh, end this episode and
Oh, so
think
good.
about what's next. But yeah, it was really great. I just want to acknowledge you for holding this for 60 minutes.
It's really
Like,
comfortable because I have my hand on my arm of my chair, so it's like
okay. Oh, got it. Okay.
it's not like I
Well,
held my hand up like this for an hour.
you got a shoulder issue.
Yeah.
Um, well, I just want to thank our whoever's come through the room for checking us out, the Kristen and Roman show. It's been a pleasure for me. Yeah.
This episode was, on fire. I love to go live. I actually enjoyed this better than us doing the pre-recording. I do
Yeah.
wanna thank everybody. We had a lot of people blow through this room, and I don't know who's still in here because unfortunately we don't get to see. Let me see if I click on the name.
Well,
No, you
hearts. Yeah.
yeah, I can get the hearts, but I can't tell who's actually still in the room. So thank you guys.
Well, thank
What I
you
would
all.
super appreciate it if you guys would give us a thumbs up on whoever channel you're listening on. Don't forget to subscribe to either channel. Rome and I do this bi-weekly, and we really Cece's still here. Thank you, Cecilia. Um, and we do this bi-weekly. We come up with topics and titles, literally whatever comes in our head. We're like, hey, that like we just did today, trauma, that's a good one. Let's talk about that next time. This is how we do things. And we love to be here and sharing with you. We also love your questions and your comments and sharing with people that you love because we all know people that need this information. It's not just us. And I'm saying that not in an imposing way, like, you gotta watch this video, because but give people the option. Say, "Hey, I watched something, and if you are interested, I'll send you the link." Okay? But
Yeah.
yeah, comment below and also let us know if you guys have any topics that you would like Roman and I to discuss in the future because we would be happy to add that to our queue and to go there. But I just want to say thank you all for being here. This was a really, really great time. And Roman, I love and appreciate
And
you so
we can
much.
high five, right? Here, can't we? The other way? If you go there. Boom.
That's funny. On my screen, we're doing it opposite.
Oh, okay. Well, then we can't.
Okay, I'm gonna do
Anyway,
one thing while we're still live though. There's a button that's 2 arrows that turn different directions,
yep.
so I'm gonna see what oh, it just turns my camera. Just
Yep.
turned my camera to my stand. And what's the one on the bottom that looks like a
Microphone. That's just to mute yourself, I think.
no, it's like a highlight saved to your channel as unlisted video? I don't know what that means. I hope it's not
I don't
unlisted
have that on
video.
my end. Yeah. I was the guest, so I don't have that on my end.
Okay. So, yes, so thank you everybody,
Cool.
and we will see you in Dos Weekos. Bye,
Peace
everybody.
out.
Peace
Bye.
out.